Hey guys, Caleb here with DSLR Video Shooter, and today we're going to talk about 5 settings you should consider changing on your Canon M50 if you shoot videos. This little camera is actually pretty great. At first, I thought I was going to very much dislike it because of its drawbacks, but this isn't going to be a review. We'll be doing a review of the Canon M50 before long, so if you are thinking about this camera for video, definitely stay tuned. It really surprised me, and I think it's definitely worth it for certain people with certain requirements for video. But in this video, we're going to talk about some settings you should change if you're picking one up, because out of the box, this thing really needs some help. The first setting you'll want to change actually involves how you're viewing the menu system. When you first turn this camera on, there's big silly photos, and it's really strange. It's more set up for low-end consumers. So if you want to have something a little more traditional for the menu setup so you can actually navigate this camera in a regular way, go ahead and do the following. Hop into the menu and go to the 4th green menu item. From there, change menu display from guided to standard. Now things are much easier to navigate. They look a lot more like they do on other Canon DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, so now you're able to get through the menu system without a bunch of giant descriptions and have more menu options available to you. The next setting involves being able to use the shutter release as the record button. When you're holding the camera and just filming willy-nilly, often I found at least that it was difficult to navigate and find where the record button is. So often I was getting ready to film, shoot, where is it, look up the top, find a button. But you can actually use the shutter release button to start your video recording, which is a lot more natural. So to do this, go ahead and hop back into the menus to navigate to the camera menu tab and go down to where it says BTN or button function. Go in here, select that, and change fully press to stop start movie record. Now you can use that main shutter button to stop and start your video recordings, and you won't have to mess around trying to find that record button. The next setting we're going to change deals with image stabilization. This camera actually has decent stabilization, but there's a setting in there that essentially ruins it, and you would think it's a good thing. So let's go ahead and jump back into the menus here, and we're going to go straight back to where we were before, the 5th page of the camera tab, and here we can go into the IS settings. Now there's 2 things in this menu. First, we have IS mode. It's simply turned on or turned off. This is the in-body stabilization. Works really well, so feel free to just leave that set to on. The setting below it is where we're going to have some problems, so that is digital IS. I'll talk about this more in my review, but essentially there's 2 settings in here, enabled and enhanced. You'd think enhanced would be awesome, but both of these settings are pretty horrific, so I recommend completely disabling digital IS. But go ahead and leave IS mode on. Now you have great stabilization, so if you're going to be doing any kind of vlogging stuff, it's going to work just fine, but that enhanced stuff, not really good. Our next setting to change is being able to deactivate the camera screen temporarily. If you're going to be vlogging or running around taking photos, battery life isn't super duper on this camera, so we want to preserve it as much as possible, but it's kind of annoying to turn the camera on and off constantly, so there's a way to get our cake and eat it too. To make this change, you need to jump into the menu system, go to the little wrench tab, and on the 5th page, you'll find custom functions. Go ahead and select that, and navigate to number 5. Hit the set button on the back of the camera, and what I recommend is going down to the trash can button, and essentially what we're doing here is remapping the controls of the camera to do other functions. So I'm going to change the trash can item over to the display off. It's that little icon with the Z's next to it. With that selected, we can go back to our main shooting screen, and if we're vlogging or taking photos or whatever with this camera, and you're kind of done filming for a second, you can go ahead and tap the trash button, and the screen and the viewfinder will black out. Now you're saving battery life, but if you're ready to start filming something again, just half press the shutter, and you're back to filming mode instantly. It's a small thing, but I've found that I use it quite a bit when running around with this camera to preserve battery life. And our last setting or settings to change involves remapping several other buttons on the camera to be more video-centric. So going back into that same menu we were before, the custom functions, we're going to go in here and make some changes. I changed the plus and minus button to be the magnify button, so if you're shooting in 4K and using manual focus, which is probably a good idea because autofocus sucks, that's a whole other topic for the review. At any rate, you can change that button to be your punch in or magnify button, so you can quickly just tap that and get a closer look at what you're trying to focus on. The M-function button I leave at ISO, and I set the AF MF2 manual focus, so that if I'm shooting in 4K or the focus just isn't working, I can hit that button and quickly go into manual focus mode. Another thing I do is change the flash button over to white balance, because I really like to use custom white balance, or at least set it to an appropriate setting. If you're using auto white balance, you can run into some serious issues, so having a button dedicated to white balance is really awesome. And a bonus setting tip, if you're using this camera, we'll talk about it in the review, but there's some really interesting lens adapting choices we have. So if you want to use adapted lenses that don't have electronics like Canon's lenses, there's a setting that'll allow you to do that. So you can hop into the menu system, go into custom functions, and navigate to number 3. There you'll be able to go in and change release shutter without lens to enabled. Now we can put any awesome vintage lens on this thing, and we'll talk about some of the lenses I would recommend to use with the M50 in my review. So that's really it, guys. A couple settings you can change on this camera to, in my opinion, improve it greatly for shooting video. Now again, at first I didn't think this was going to be a good option for video shooters, but after purchasing it for myself and using it, I was really surprised. So make sure you stay tuned for that review where we'll jump in and check out this camera for shooting video. And by the way, this video is not sponsored by Canon or anyone else. This is just me purchasing a camera and trying to help you guys figure out how to use it best for video. That's going to do it for this one, guys. We have fresh videos here at DSLR Video Shooter every single Tuesday and Thursday with live streams on Wednesdays. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.